escalated the federal response to protests in Los Angeles, deploying another 2,000 National Guard troops and 700 U.S. Marines. The move comes despite opposition from California's Democratic leaders. Governor Gavin Newsom called the deployment deranged and un-American, warning that Trump is using the military to intimidate Americans on U.S. soil. Trump blamed what he called insurrectionists for violence in Los Angeles and praised his decision to send in troops. He later suggested he'd support the arrest of Governor Newsom for obstructing immigration enforcement. Here's what Trump has said.
Homing to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Trump. I think it's right. Of course, the Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it's a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass condemned the federal raids that triggered the unrest. She urged the Trump administration to stop the raids and respect state authority. Here's what the California mayor has said.
Stop the raids, period. I would say give the power back to our governor, and if we need the National Guard, we can do it in the normal circumstances, which is the request is made local and the governor decides or not to grant that to our city.
The UN has expressed concern over the situation, urging all sides to avoid further militarization and calling for calm, stability, and restraint across all levels of government. Here's what the UN spokesperson has said.
We certainly hope that all parties on the ground will de-escalate the situation. We do not want to see any further militarization of this situation, and we encourage the parties at the local, state, and federal levels to work to do that.
Is President Trump sending National Guards considered militarization?
I think you are aware of what the situation on the ground is, and what we want is to see a de-escalation of that.
Protests broke out after ICE agents detained dozens across Los Angeles last week, while demonstrations have since calmed. Officials say the federal troop presence is straining local agencies. California has filed a lawsuit against the federal government, calling the deployment unconstitutional. Now we have Shruti Das Gupta joining us for this news discussion. Thank you, Shruti, for joining us today. Is President Trump's use of troops in Los Angeles a proportional response to the protest or an abuse of federal power, according to you?
Greetings, Asuma. Thank you for having me. The US LA riots are not unique. LA riots pretty often in 1992 under George Bush. Also, National Guard was employed there when the city was rioting. So use of National Guard is not anti-national. It is not an unusual display of force. In fact, the reports that we've been considering as analysts on this side of the world, we are seeing that apparently the mayor boss of LA had asked the LAPD officials not to assist ICE officials while they were trying to take away these illegal immigrants. So basically, as a Democrat leader and under the able guidance of Newsom, they have not decided, Governor Newsom, they've decided not to assist the Trump administration in cleaning up illegal immigration in the state of California. So what happens after that is that if there is no local police support coming through, you are going to either have to storm into the city in large forces so that the people that you're sending in, the officials, the ICE officials that you're sending in to identify and then deport illegal immigrants are going to face a large number, because we know that there is a large number of immigrants there. They're going to have to face off with them. And that is usually going to result in injury to your government officials. So if the local police and the local establishment goes against the central federal structure of United States, it is completely appropriate for President Trump to employ forces as desired. You have to understand, on the day one, he did not put in as many forces. He put in about, I think, 300 odd National Guard. Despite that, the city continues to riot. These rioters have turned into looters. There were various videos going viral showing that the shopkeepers were calling the police, saying that these looters have now started looting the stores. So under no circumstances we should be under the illusion that these riots were peaceful, they were not harmful. They were exactly how rioters are. They are destroying property, enjoying the moment of madness. They've put those electric cars, the self-driven cars, Wacom cars, on fire. Now, what has those cars got to do with the entire anti-immigration protest? So under no circumstances should we fall in for the trap that this is a peaceful riot. This is disobedience, civil disobedience that has been covered by a blanket of protection by the Democrat leaders. And they are the ones who are saying, like, step back, de-escalate. But when in fact their own protesters are harming US officials.
And taking that point further, Shruti, how do mass migrant raids and troop deployments coexist with America's image as a democracy that upholds civil rights?
Let's just understand that democracy is a dance. It kind of happens. It is never stable. It's not ever going to be stable. Riots are seen everywhere. But what we're seeing, particularly in this case in US, is that the previous administration had something some form of open borders policies, and they had invited literally immigrants from all over the place to walk across the borders and come and take up land, take up employment, and use up the US resources. Now, if we add this to the social security kind of setup that was set up for immigrants. So they were paying people to cross the border and then come and live in America, while America was going into its own debt cycle crisis. So that added to the fact that they were inviting immigrants, it is pretty clear that the Biden administration and the Democrats were more interested in building up vote banks, because once you have these settlers come in and you've given them citizenships and you've kind of legitimized their existence, they are your permanent voter bank because they know you protect them. When the Republicans come into force, which has happened with what Donald Trump is, when he is becoming president, he's saying, I don't want anybody who's not here, supposed to be here, through legal process. So if somebody's gone through legal process, they're not facing this action. So police force action against illegal immigrants is a complete form of democracy. You cannot, if your country has open borders, it's as good as having no borders. So you cannot leave your establishment open to anybody walking through. You have no check or guidance whether who's walking through is a criminal, gangster, is psychologically stable. What exactly are you facing is when you invite people over from across the border to just take space in United States, is exactly what LA is facing. Now, if you kind of marry the two, the use of force, use of National Guards, there is no other way to expel them. Now, in this particular LA riots case, the wonderful part is that the pro-Palestinian groups have added their body to the anti-immigration groups. So it's not just an anti-immigration riot, it's a full-on democratic ideological war that is happening on the soil of LA. So we have to understand that it is not whether the democratic process or the democracy of USA is collapsing. It was actually a very anti-democratic process that was put in by the Democrats, that is under Biden administration, which is now being countered by force. And unfortunately, for something like this, there is no other recourse.
And picking up on your earlier point, what does this clash tell us about the state of federal-state relations under the current Trump administration?
This is something that we have noticed across the world, now including my country, India. If your state government is not in consonance or is not in resonance with the central government, there is a difficulty in implementing policies. And this is exactly case in point. Now, in the US federal structure, they kind of ensure that there are a lot of, there's a large body of work that can only be done by a state. education being one of them. But immigration is coming directly under the federal government. That's the central government. That is the earlier Biden and now Trump administration. If a state is refusing to bow down to the diktats put in by their president, chosen by the people, then it is an outright rebellion. And so if President Trump is within his rights to say that this Governor Newsom has to be brought to account, he has to pay for what he's doing to the people of California, people of LA, because he has refused to follow the law laid down by the federal structure. California, if it is not part of the US federal structure, would be open to a lot more hostilities. It probably take over by Mexico. Half of the rioters standing there are giving street interviews calling themselves Mexicans. So you have and calling California and LA part of Mexico. So you have to understand that California enjoys its beautiful status and its rich social fabric, but it does not control the US borders and it does not control central policy. So the federal structure needs to be obeyed, which is now being flouted right in the face of Donald Trump. So which is exactly why these riots have occurred. The mayor of LA, the governor of California, they have both rebelled against diktats put out by the central structure, and which is kind of not really good for the overall democratic structure of USA.
Thank you very much, Shruti Das Gupta. She's an international affairs expert